there's a lot of details that go into it, but at the same time, we're all smart, right? We're all confident.
Yeah.
We will figure this out, right? Whatever
Yep.
it is, there's nothing that we cannot solve, right? And or that has not been solved, to your point, right?
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where I, Kyle, from Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? This week on the show, we got to interview a really cool guest named Mindaugus Maciulis. Min is an awesome entrepreneur in the cannabis space in Massachusetts, as well as being a local real estate investor with a 4-family property in a town that many investors are bullish on. In this episode, some of the fun things that we got to dig really deep into include countering self-limiting beliefs, getting through the learning curves when you're first beginning, and systematizing everything that you can in your business, and so much more. There are a ton of really cool tips in this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 77 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, we get the great pleasure of chatting with Mindaugus Maciulis, a Fitchburg-based real estate investor and entrepreneur in the cannabis space. What's going on, Min? How are we doing, my friend? So excited to have you on.
Yeah, Kyle, I appreciate the invitation. It's great to be here. Yeah, super pumped.
Thank you so much, man. So yeah, to kind of jump right into things, tell us a little bit about you and your backstory, your superhero backstory, and you as an investor, entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I had quite an interesting background, right? So I live in Massachusetts now, but I originally came from Lithuania, have been in the US for just over 20 years, and have done all kinds of interesting things, worked in operations, logistics with different companies. And, in the last few years, I met a mentor of mine who really showed me the ropes to real estate and it really inspired me how to think about it, how to put together deals and look at real estate syndications. And he has been an inspiration to me, and um, just an honor to be a part of his group and other investors. Yeah. So, the last 3 years, I joined the cannabis company, as you mentioned, right? And that has been very interesting. We built a great company. We one of the leading companies in Massachusetts, and it was such a great opportunity for me to jump in and make a positive impact on the industry, on the people, right? And it's based in Fitchburg. That's where our factory is. And the coolest thing about that, Kyle, is that now that building, that property has hundreds of people coming to work every day, where for 20 plus years that building was empty. So it's such a cool thing to see every day now, where we can even find a parking spot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's unreal, man. To go from having that vision and being able to especially take a building like that, that nobody's touched, and maybe the neighbors call it an eyesore or something like that, and completely revamp it into this, booming, what's the word for it? I guess industry,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool, and you're right. The neighbors at first had an issue, right? But then it seems like everybody's just getting on board finally, right? Everyone starts to accept for what it is and see the benefits of it, right? And I hear amazing stories almost on daily basis, just how cannabis have changed their lives, how much better they are now versus dealing with pharmaceuticals, right? And it's incredible. It's awesome to see that.
It really is, man. It's such a really cool industry. And it's interesting to see, where it came from to where it is now, and how things are, people are really opening up across the country and everything. And it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a part of the reason, Kyle, why I am a big fan of Fitchburg and Leominster and so many other towns now that are creating again the jobs in the industry, right? Creating real estate needs, right? We just in Fitchburg alone, we have over 200 employees, right? Which is fantastic, right? And it's bringing so much more economic upswing again, right, to the town that for the most part for the last few decades, it was not doing that great, right? So many jobs and companies outsourced their operations. So it's part of the reason why I started investing in real estate in Fitchburg specifically, because I see the need, right? I see people coming in again to Fitchburg. I see the needs, including our own employees, looking for places to live, right? And I'm like, what a great opportunity, right, to not only create jobs in the cannabis industry, but also provide opportunities for people to live and create again create communities, create their families, and create their life in Fitchburg and Leominster. Yeah,
That's super cool, man. Like, especially to have that angle of like, being like a huge employer out that neck of the woods and like creating all these jobs. But to your point as well, like if there's a lot of great jobs that are coming in, then people are going to want to be living a lot closer. And, if the
right.
demand isn't really, well, if the demand like skyrockets, there's a whole nother gap in the market that you might be able to take advantage of. It's the
Absolutely.
coolest thing in the world to kind of like
Yeah.
blend those two together, like business and real estate, and literally like tied right in. And that's huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what kind of got you into real estate initially, man? Like what kind of gave you the bug?
Yeah, the bug, it definitely came from my mentor, right?
Mhm.
He's been teaching me about real estate for the last few years, and he has created multiple businesses and had massive success in real estate, and he's such a big advocate just for everyone to buy their first property as multifamily property, right?
Mhm.
Whether you're 18, 20, or 40, it's like whatever you do, start with a duplex or triplex, right? Because that's, doing the house hack, right? If you can, and building from that foundation, it's where you can create the wealth.
Yeah.
He said he started with a duplex years and years ago, and at one point owned, I think, close to 2,000 units. So again, just the compounding process, right, on where you can create wealth this way. So again, he was such a big inspiration to me, and but really, what started last year, I reread um, Robert Kiyosaki's book again
Mhm.
after probably 15, 20 years, maybe, since I read it the first time. And it clicked with me on a different level, right? I read it again long time ago. It was great concepts, but I didn't really understand the impact it can have, like, of making those changes in your life.
Yeah.
And when I read it again last year, I'm like, wow, this is truly brilliant. So maybe it's just my maturity over time, right? Put all the concepts together in a much different way. And I'm like, this is what I need to do now. There's no more time to waste, right? And I became very aggressive in looking into properties in Fitchburg, and saw this uh, uh, saw multiple properties that I started making offers on. Some of them did not get accepted. Some of them did not make sense, right? And then there was one that came up, a fourplex, that looked like it was in great shape. Beautiful units, already renovated, had the parking lot, everything. And I'm like, you know what? I'll make a great offer on it. Um, Unfortunately, it didn't get accepted. um, and I was disappointed, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll just keep pushing the process forward, right? And about a month later, the same agent calls me back and says, "Hey, the buyers fell through. They're like, do you want this property?" I'm
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, let's do it. Um, and immediately we just got it done under contract and closed 45 days later. Yeah.
Wow. I love that, man. It's so crazy. Like, especially in the kind of market that we're in now, where there's like tons and tons of offers coming in. And um, like, just because your offer doesn't get accepted initially, like that doesn't mean that that's it. Like
Yeah.
you never know when you can get that phone call to come in and be like, oh, hey, like the first 3 offers fell apart. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, do you still want it? Heck yeah, I do.
Yeah, I actually I realized that my offers may not be accepted because I can be somewhat conservative, right? Because I want to make sure the numbers make sense, right? Even if
Yeah.
we do have a downturn, right? It has to make sense to me. So I'll still make offers, and even I'll tell the agents, hey, keep me as a backup offer. Like
Hmm.
that's it. Like so they know, and I'm like, would you let me know if you have issues with your buyers? I'm like, I'm very serious, but I understand I'm not the highest offer,
Yeah.
but keep it as your second best offer. And sometimes it will work, sometimes won't, right? But it's good to be in that position. And if you don't make any offers, they're not even gonna know about you, right? So
Yeah.
constantly being in the mix of all the agents, brokers, and positioning yourself in those situations could be a winning strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's super valuable, man. I totally agree with you. I was in kind of a similar position when I was looking around, putting a couple offers in like here and there on certain properties. And when I got the property that I ended up closing on under like under contract, I remember I was driving out this way and like same type of thing. I got a call on my phone. They're like, oh, this is, the agent from X street. And things fell through. Like, would you want to, still put an offer in? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I would, but like, I got this one under contract. Like, good luck, hope for the best, that kind of thing. But you just never know.
You never
Exactly,
know.
man. And
Right.
if you don't put offers in, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So like, even if like just throw your hat in the ring and like, you never know, like you're
Right.
opening up the door for possibilities for things that like you might not expect at all.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's such a um, great advice, Kyle. And not only I would say always ask also to see if they have other properties, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's another great tip because it's a lot of investors, especially if they're absentee owners, right? And they maybe they're at a time in their life where they're now just selling all their properties, right? So it might be just a one property at a time that is on market. But sometimes I look up the public records and I can see, right? There's a few of them that they have, right? And I'm like, hey, can I, let me know about the other properties if you're interested in selling, or even let's see if we can buy two of them at the same time, right? So for them, it's an easier transaction as well, right?
That's
So
huge. That's a
yeah,
huge tip, man.
yeah,
Like you just never know, I mean,
yeah,
a lot of people a lot of people don't want to stop at just like one duplex, like most of us want to, keep buying properties over time and everything. And, eventually situations are going to change, or maybe you want to cash out or like, go start a business with that money and,
right,
and transfer it from asset to asset. And you just never know,
right,
so to ask that question of like, oh, hey, like, I see this one is, like you're selling this one, but, do you have any other ones? Like I'd be more than happy to see if we can figure something out and see if it works for both of us. And you never
absolutely.
know. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right?
That's right. Yeah, and no is always just at the time, right? You can,
Exactly.
you know, yeah.
I love that, man. That's awesome. So what's kind of your drive and your vision, for the long term, like for the business, like as a investor, like entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kyle. My drive is actually my family, right? Um, when I was growing up, we really came from nothing, right? And then I moved to the US when I was 17. Um, had one suitcase with me, and that's about it, and needed to start my life. And my parents were still in Lithuania for actually just until recently. And so I knew I need to make it in the US. And it was rough, definitely rough at the beginning. I barely spoke any English, and had to just build everything, right? Luckily, I met amazing people in my life, and built great relationships, and who helped me, who mentored me, and I'm so happy to be in that position to give back to so many of them right now. Um, that the drive to succeed was always in me, right? Like I always wanted um, to show to myself that I can do this, right?
Yeah.
But now I should now have an amazing family, have a wonderful wife and two kids. They have become my why, right? The driving force behind everything I do. And I don't want them to be in any position financially, a bad position where um, they would not be good, right? If something happened to me, right? So creating opportunities, creating wealth, creating passive income is for them and for me as well, is what drives me, right? I just want to make sure they would be okay. Um, and real estate is really such a great tool, right? A great aspect of creating that wealth, right? Um, Not only you can benefit from a cash flow, but also from appreciation and tax benefits, right? It's which is why it clicks so well with me, right? And I'm still fairly early in the investment career, right? But I have really ambitious goals, and very excited about them, right? Uh, I belong right now to a group of investors that have multifamily properties, all over the country. We're focusing on really large complexes, even anywhere from um, 20 to 200 units. And being a part of this group has been really fascinating and exciting. And we, my goal in the next year to acquire 100 units, and then
Right.
in the next 3 years to get to 500 units. And then we'll go from there. But um, I know it's all doable because I see other people in my group of investors doing the same thing, and actually some of them have thousands of units now. So
Yeah.
it's really incredible to see that, and it's such an inspiration as well.
It really is, man. Like just being around those right people can totally change your life. You know what I mean? And like on your own, like, being super ambitious and stuff, like it like you might not see how possible it actually is, until like you see some of the people, like you said, that are doing that like times
Right.
10. You're like, oh, it's not that bad. Like we'll do that, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it completely changes your mindset, right? And a lot of people say you need to think big, but it's so hard sometimes to think big until you see it and experience it, right?
Yeah.
Um, like that was my issue for many years, right? Like I could not think behind my own limitations, my mind limitations, right? Like if someone said like you can own 1,000 units 10 years ago to me, I would not think it's possible, right? It
Yeah.
didn't seem achievable. I really couldn't grasp that concept on how can someone do this, right? Until I met people who do this,
Yeah.
right? And when they walk you through that process, how they do this, you're like, huh, it's really not that complicated, right? It takes a lot of grit, a lot of work, a lot of um, just discipline, right? To do what you need to do, right? A lot of things that a lot of people won't do, but it is achievable. It is doable, and learning from them and seeing how it's done is what makes you start believing and thinking that at the same level, and that's where it all starts.
100%. That's something I'm extremely fascinated with, that concept of like one way that like perceive something, like maybe like I guess maybe like levels of like self-limiting beliefs are going to be drastically different from like when you first start to like, starting to kind of tiptoe into things a little
Yeah,
bit to starting to get into things and then like really, really get into things. And
right.
like it's like you're just gonna like be more free, like the more people that you meet and everything, and like people are doing like really big things, and all of a sudden those self-limiting beliefs of like, oh, like I can't do that, like that's way too big, they just start to like disintegrate, like they're just
Yeah.
not there anymore. And
Yeah.
it like just being around those right people is just really imperative, to doing big things. And the cool thing is too, is like, most of the problems that you're going to have and everything, like they aren't new problems, like to the world,
That's right.
so like,
Yeah.
like raising capital or something like that. Like, oh, like, yeah, it's difficult, like, right off the bat and everything, but has it been done before? Yeah,
Yeah.
like millions of times.
Millions of times, right?
And
And
like
being
if
done
you're,
every day. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like if you're around the right people, be like, oh, hey, like this is kind of what I was thinking. Like, I want to raise like this much from like, these kind of people, and this is how I was going to go at it. Like those people might be able to help you out and be like, oh, actually, this is a way that was kind of working for me a lot more. And like, it's done this much. And
Right.
it's unreal, like, like
Yeah.
your mindset will just like permanently keep getting rewired, like the more and more that you keep digging and everything. And it's something that's really special.
Yeah, it's all a process, right? At the end of the day, it's all been documented, right? It's all been proven so many times. Um, the raising capital or putting the deals under a contract, putting syndications together, it's all a very detailed process, right?
Yep.
And there's so many investors that share that, right? And they're happy to share that. And if you just follow that, it may be difficult the first few times because it's new, right? It's all
Yeah.
normal to everyone, but you get better and better and better with that process, right? And it's not complicated. It's hard because you have to do it and you have to fight your fears, right? And those limiting beliefs, but
Mhm.
you just have to do what needs to be done, right? And I love that about you, Kyle, right? You starting in, I wish I did this 15, 20 years ago, right? Which is, I'm so jealous of you and the position you're in, right? You starting out this, learning all of this, taking it all in. You're such a great connector. You're meeting so many people and you're connecting them with each other, right? Which is such a great way of not only um, to bring value to everyone, but also to yourself, right? It's you'll create such a great community of investors and same uh, like-minded people, right? That will just grow your career like you probably can't even imagine at this point.
Thank you so much, man. It means so much to me, man. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just nuts, man. You know what I mean? Like literally, like understanding the concept of like you can do anything. Like I was having this conversation actually with somebody like a couple nights ago. And like that's more or less what I was thinking of. I totally forgot, exactly what the phrase was, but like when somebody tells you like before you get into like real estate investing or starting a business or something like that, like they say like, oh, like you can do anything. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, like great, okay, like I get it. But then as soon as you start to dig in deeper and deeper, it starts to get a different meaning. And like
Yeah.
this is something that kind of clicked for me. It was like it's almost like, like the way I think of it is there's like different levels of like how you understand that phrase of like, oh, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, like you might not think anything of it. And then, maybe like you start that business right off the bat or like buy that first property or something like that. And then it starts to take on a different meaning. Like, oh, like I just bought 3 or 4 units. Like, what's another like 8 or 10? Like,
Right.
it's the same thing, like,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, like your mindset's different because like you're living it now. And
Yeah.
then, you buy that like 6 to 8 to 10 unit building. It's like, oh, well, I figured this out, twice before. What's another 50, 100?
Right.
It's the
Right.
same thing,
Yeah.
and like the more that you keep digging in, like the more like the different that phrase or the different meaning that phrase actually starts to take on of like, you can do anything. It's like, oh crap, like seriously, like buy a couple hundred units at a time. All right.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And you're right.
Absolutely.
And it is like just a process. And
Yeah.
like the cool thing I really, really love about real estate, man, is literally like most of the strategies that you hear out there, whether it's like, house hacking or flipping or Airbnbs, syndications, all of them work, you know, and like there have been people out there that have made, you know, a ridiculous amount of money and changed their entire family's lives and everything from like just that one thing, you know. So like anybody can do this type of stuff, man. And like you don't have to go crazy right off the bat, you know, like just kind of tiptoe into things and like, you know, start to, like you said, you know, follow some of the people that, you know, that you can look up to and like listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos and read books. And like it's anybody can do it. And like I feel like real estate is I'm not sure how to put a percentage on it, but like I feel like most of it is like mindset versus like actual tactical stuff, you know.
I agree. It really is all mindset, 90% of it, if we had to put the number to it, right? And then the 10% is just action, right? To take serious action. But that first, especially first property, it is scary, right? It is scary because you don't know how many issues you're gonna have, what kind of tenants you're gonna have, right? There is a lot of details that go into it, but at the same time, we're all smart, right? We're all confident. We will figure this out, right? Whatever it is, there's nothing that we cannot solve, right? And or that has not been solved, to your point, right? So why not? Why not to take those risks, educated risks, right? And just work through those issues if they come up, right? And I know you've had, you know, with your investment, there
Couple.
were some issues, and you're figuring it out, right? And solving those problems. And actually, now you have great contacts in people, contractors that can solve your other problems, right? Or when you buy other properties, now you know what to do. You'll know who to call and how much it's gonna cost you.
Exactly. You know, and like to your point, man, like I feel like once you're able to really establish that mindset of like playing the long-term game and realizing like this is gonna work one way or another, like buying this property and like, you know, you're gonna reach your vision, like as long as you know, like keep your head on straight and like, you know, just keep running things and everything. Like once you realize like that it's gonna work, you know, but like you have to, you know, get dragged through the crap, I guess you could say, you know, from one point to another. And like, do you think that there's an investor out there that has like, you know, 50 units under their name that hasn't dealt with like an eviction or like, you know, like a leaking pipe or like a pipe bursting or something like that before? No
way.
You know, so like that's kind of the mentality that I'm starting to discover, you know, especially with this property after, you know, being knocked around a couple times, is like things are going to happen. And like, that's what we sign up for.
Right.
You know, but it's the bigger picture of like, you know, like this kind of sucks right now, but down the line, like it can change everybody's life, man.
That's right. It's
you know, and like to your point of, you know, like it being hard. It definitely is. But it's also hard to work, you know, 40-hour or, you know, the same miserable job for 40 years and like, and that's it. And like, hopefully retire and that kind of thing. So what, you know, like you take a risk, throw some money on the line. If things don't work out, like whatever, you know, but if you have that mentality, like to keep moving forward, you're going to make it work one way or another. And you're going to learn the whole time.
You're building your own business, right? At the end of the day, right? You're not working for anyone, right? Yes, you're solving problems. It is hard work, but at the end of the day, it's if you set your mind to think of it as a long-term game play, you're building a business, right? You're eventually, as you know, you may start out as managing everything yourself and dealing with all the problems, but as you grow, you know, you're gonna outsource many aspects of that business, right? And you can start focusing on the things that you do like about the business, right? Maybe it's property acquisitions, right? Or underwriting them, right? While other people do other things, right? So it's definitely a team sport, and as you become bigger and you can build a great team and everyone has fun with it.
I know that's the thing that I love too, man, is like to your point of it being like a team-based sport, you know, like everybody is like specialists and like, you know, a lot of these certain areas, you know, like contractors and like, you know, electricians, plumbers, like, you know, people running numbers on buildings and like, you know, people managing the buildings, like getting into this kind of stuff, like you don't have to be an expert in everything, you
Yeah,
know, and like
sure
it
not.
exactly, you know, and like if anything, like it probably wouldn't be beneficial trying to be an expert in everything,
Right.
you know, instead of like just picking like one direction, like, oh, you know, like I just bought this building, like, you know, I'm trying to write up all these processes. So, you know, when like X event happens, you know, I just call this guy because he's like really good at it
Right.
and like, you know, pay a little bit of money, but like, you know, like save time and have it done the right way and that type of thing. And then you can just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Like something that I'm realizing with this property, man, is like I've been trying to write down like standard operating procedures for like everything that I can, you know, of like right when you purchase, yeah, right when you close on a property, like what's the first step?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like right off the bat, like, oh, you know, call the utility company and like change the
Right.
names or, you know, like meet the tenants. And,
Yeah.
you know, like I feel like everything, like you can just streamline everything to some degree, you know, because like the more buildings you buy, you know, generally speaking, a lot of the processes are going to be the same,
Yeah.
you know, and like it could just make it easier on you, you know, I mean, if you can systematize it and just streamline everything. It's like, oh, I've already done this a couple times. Like, you know, we'll go out and buy locks, change the locks, you know, do whatever with the keys and like, you know, figure out what the tenants, what's going on. And
Mhm.
it just, a lot of it is the same process. So if you can streamline it, then like it takes a lot less, you know, like stress and like your energy. Cause like you already have it written down because you've
Right.
already done it a bunch. Like just, you know, a bunch of check boxes and, you know, all of a sudden, like, you know, things are going okay. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's such a great point, Kyle. I came from that operations background that I mentioned, right? And when I worked with pharmaceutical and medical device companies, everything was super detailed and super documented, right? You could not do anything in those um, factories or distribution centers unless it was documented, and everyone was trained to exact step-to-step process, right? And so everything's systemized, and when you systemize it, everybody knows what to do, but also the mistakes are minimized, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a proven process. And because you have a baseline, then you can also look on how to build a better model, right? Because you know what works, what doesn't, right? And you can compare it to that baseline. So I
Yeah.
think it applies so much in real estate and so many other industries, right? To your point, everything needs to be systemized, right? What to do with when the issues come up, right? What to do when a new tenant moves in, right? When you acquire a property, like all the different pieces, right?
Yeah.
And that's what great investors that scaled quickly, that's what they've done, right? They systemized every single piece of it. And that's when it's easy to bring new people to the team because you already have a process. You can just plug them in and say, run with this, right? And continue to improve it, right?
Yeah.
But it's an easy model for someone to jump in and just build on that. Yeah,
Yeah. I totally agree, man.
yeah,
You know, and like even like think about it in the regard of, you know, people that are doing like 10 flips a month or like, you know, doing like so established, like it's not even funny. Like you have a
right.
million projects going on. If you don't have systems, like you're gonna lose your shirt very quickly.
Yeah,
You know, like
right.
everything's hitting the fan and like you're playing firefighter trying to take care of all these emergencies
Yeah,
and messes and people not answering and this, that, the other. And like the only way to scale and to succeed like is to systematize it, you know, and
yeah,
like keep stepping away and like making it easier to, you know, acquire these properties and find these properties and write offers and everything. And
yeah,
like
yeah,
basically I think it's really interesting, like the bigger you want to go, it's almost like the less you want to be a part of, you know, only like the bigger picture,
yeah,
like higher level type of stuff.
yeah.
And
Well, I
yeah.
think it's important to stick to the reasons also why you're into this business, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure you're not in it to spend your days, right, fixing property issues, right? Whether it's furnace, toilets, whatever, right?
Hmm.
That's that's really not the ultimate goal, at least not for me.
Yeah.
Um, so you know, you yes, you worked very hard at the beginning in order to put those systems in place, finding the right people that you can plug in, so you can actually focus on what's really important to you, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
family, traveling, um, or acquiring more properties and scaling, right? It's again, it gives you those options, right? And that's one thing you know, I think a lot of new investors struggle with, Kyle, that
Yeah.
scale, right? Or ability to get beyond that one or two or three properties, right? Because they get so sometimes sucked into wanting to do everything themselves. But
Yeah.
when you do that, you're not really building the business, right? You're just working. You're still
Working in
working
it.
for yourself, but you are working in it, right? So yeah, always as I'm thinking about different problems now, I always think of Who Not How, and it's a great book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Um, always think of who first before
Yeah.
how, because we can all spend time and learn things, right? How to do this, and you can watch YouTube videos and everything else. But more importantly and more impactful will be to find who can do those pieces for you, so you
Yeah.
can focus on what's important to you.
I
Yeah.
love that, man. I've heard that book referenced in like so many places. I haven't
Yeah.
read it yet. It's definitely on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a great book. It really changed my mindset on how to think about that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
to your point too, man, of like there was an investor, actually another agent on our team as well. He right after I bought this property, he was telling me, he's like, man, like, make sure you find an electrician, a plumber, and a handyman
Yeah.
for, like the house that you just bought, like that covers like that general area. He's like, so then, you already kind of like dig the well before you have to drink, so because like nobody plans for like a water heater to go out or like two oil tanks to start leaking on you. Like nobody plans for that. Like it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is gonna happen on Saturday at 3 o'clock. I better call a contractor at 2 and like, get somebody lined up.
Right.
No, it's gonna happen on Sunday night at 6 p.m. when it's really freaking cold outside.
Yeah.
So like that's a system, to already have like a couple people lined up, like, oh, like if something hits the fan, like I'll just give him a buzz and hopefully get him out here like ASAP.
Mhm.
And if not, like then it's somebody that does. And to a lot of the points that you were talking about earlier, man, like when I found my tanks leaking, like there was a couple minutes where I was kind of freaking out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm trying to call people, whatever. And then I realized, I'm like, or I realized something in that moment. I was like, if I'm gonna keep building this business and everything, like you can't freak out. Like things are gonna happen. Like you have to kind of practice that. This is something that I realized, at least for myself. I'm like, I have to, step back, like take a breath and just kind of like, you know, look from the outside in of like the situation that's going on. Like you can't be like reactive, like, and yeah, I mean it's something that just kind of hit me hard, is like you can't freak out, like it's natural, like things are gonna happen, like it's part of the process, like it's part of our learning, it's our tuition, for bigger and better things.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and things will happen for sure. I have a great friend of mine who's buying properties as well, and I mean, it seems like he had quite a bit of bad luck at the beginning. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
it was bad tenants. Uh, um, s- like his first property, he ended up evicting someone, right? There was a death in the property that he bought, right? Like
Oh my
like
god.
there's a lot of things that
Poor guy.
happen very quickly,
Yeah.
and but I admire his continuous push and thinking long term, and
Yeah.
he's just dealing with all those problems, right?
Yep.
Is and man, it's building his foundation so well,
Yeah.
because all other problems will seem like they're nothing comparing to what he has gone through already
Yeah.
in his first couple of years of investment. Yeah.
I love that, man. You're totally right. And like something that I realized with the tanks and then the furnace and stuff like that. Like, so that would have been, if I didn't use Mass Save, that would have been around like 12 grand, like right after I bought a property. And, good thing I had reserves. And, I'm trying to, push that message to people of, like don't over leverage and everything. But like after I was able to, get those issues fixed and like take a step back and like just like watch the movie of like everything that happened in those moments, I realized I'm like, yeah, I might have paid, 6 grand and got another loan for another 6, but the amount that I learned from that about like, like keeping my head on straight and like not freaking out and like, just realizing like things are going to happen and, who to call, to like dealing with contractors and making sure they're all right, to discovering that, you can buy a lockbox from Home Depot for $35 and like just punch a code in and be like, oh, all right, the code's 1234, like go in, go do your thing. Like the amount that I learned from that, man. And like, even on like showings or like, if I'm looking for another property for me or for clients or whatever, to just double check those oil tanks, man, because like you never know. But what I'm getting at is like the amount that I learned from that. Yeah, I might have paid like, like 12 grand over like 5 years technically, but in my opinion, like the amount that I learned over that, like I lucked out in a way.
Right.
And like it's to a lot of people, it sounds crazy because it's like, oh, dude, like what's wrong with you? Like you just paid $12,000 and like had a bunch of crap go wrong. But I realized I'm like, the amount that I learned from that, like the education that I just got that's going to serve me for the rest of my life, I'm like 12 grand is nothing. I'm like, I just learned how to fish.
It's
you
gonna
know,
save
like
in the long term. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tough to have that mentality, like things are hitting the fan. You're like, oh crap, like, should I have done this? Like this was a bad idea. But I mean, that was something in itself, was just to realize like, hey, you're signing up for something that's going to be extremely beneficial for a lot of people down the line.
Right.
But like, you're going to have to get, dragged through the crap once in a while. And like, it's part of what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
And like, I was thinking, I'm like, I don't have a choice, when I found the tanks leak and I'm like, I just need to have this fixed. Like, I don't have a choice. Like, I'm not going to leave them like that,
Right.
so like, why freak out, like just kind of like try to rationalize as much as you can. And it's like, oh, like things happen, like, call people up and yeah, it kind of sucks and, whatever. But I mean, it's to be able to kind of
you
step
handled
back.
it well, right? Like I admire that you made so many calls. You did not give up. You called everyone until you got the answers and someone to come in and get it done for you, right? So great job on that. Yeah.
No, thank you, man. And like, it's something that I realized. I was like, when things are going wrong, like you don't have a choice but to get it fixed. Like things happen. So like, why freak out over it? Like just try and rationalize as best as you can and be like, all right, like, this drain line is squirting water every once in a while. Like, who do I call? Like
Right.
I signed up for this. Like, we just have to get it fixed.
That's right.
And then next time, to your point earlier of like, oh, now you might have a contact for a good contractor if this happens again. Like,
Right.
and there was something that that Brandon Turner mentioned on the Biggerpockets podcast one time, or it might have been in one of the books, I forget, but he said something that really really kind of stuck with me. I don't know why that was very difficult to say. I'm getting excited, but yeah, he said that stress is, or like being stressed out is having a lack of systems. And it made me start to think, man, I'm like, I mean, obviously, like in some situations it's more applicable than others, but like if you think about it in terms of like operating, like a business or a property or something, like, yeah, I mean, like if you go into your basement and there's 2 inches of water in there, you're going to be insanely stressed out.
Right.
But, now that you came across that issue, like one, the amount that you learn is going to be like through the roof. And two, now you can create a process for like, oh, like, this is the pipe that burst. It was uninsulated in the basement. And like, like whatever happened, like, how can I fix that for next time, for like my next property? Or, oh, like this happened, like who's the contact that I can call when this happens?
Right.
So like, maybe then like next time you'll only be half as stressed out because like, who knows, like you might be able to actually eliminate the problem altogether.
Yeah.
Or, if God forbid it does happen, like you've already been through this before. Like you just,
Right.
you know, gotta call up, you know, these three guys and one of them will show up and you'll be good. And like just keep moving forward.
That's
You
right.
know, and same thing with like to your point earlier of like, you know, if a unit or if a tenant leaves a unit and like you're turning it over and everything, like, yeah, that might stress the hell out of you, you know, because like you're only getting like half the rent or like 75% of the rent now because like people aren't paying because they're, you know, in another apartment or whatever. That might really stress you out. But if you write up a process the first time that you go through that, of like, oh, you know, these guys gave me a notice that they're going to leave in like, you know, 3 months or something, like, you know, figure out how am I going to turn this unit over as soon as possible. And then, you know, what's the process that I'm going to use to like take pictures of the unit and advertise it and everything? Where am I going to advertise it? Like, you know, how am I going to do showings when a bunch of people are lighting up my phone to try to get in here? Like, how am I going to price it?
Yeah.
Like, if you can systematize that, then it's like, oh, no biggie. Like,
Right.
and it's not going to stress you out that much.
All right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's, I feel like it's just kind of like
Following the
establishing that
process.
baseline of like the first time that something happens. Like if you can write up a process for it, then it's not going to stress you out as much, if not at all anymore. You know,
Right.
and if you just keep doing that, then eventually, like, you know, like you'll have a book of processes for operating a like a 2 to 4 unit building, you
That's
know.
right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's
You just
something, it just blew my mind. Like when I heard him say that, I was like, whoa, like that's a good point.
yeah. Yeah, and that's when you can scale as well, right? Because you again you build that foundation, you build the processes, and then you just scale from that, right? And if you don't, then you cannot scale, right? So it's like building a house, right? You have to build that foundation, and the
Yeah,
foundation is the processes. Um,
exactly. And I
yeah,
feel like that's a huge thing for mindset, man. It's like just realizing like, you know, you're gonna definitely be able to reach that vision and get what you want, but like you're gonna work to get there. But you can either work towards something big and take a little bit of risk and stuff like that, or
yeah,
you can risk having your entire life absolutely miserable in a job that you hate, you know, with people that you don't like, and
yeah,
that's it. And just like being unhappy, you know, like life's too short, man. Like,
yeah,
you know, you
yeah,
have to be
yeah.
happy.
Yeah. So what's your vision, Kyle? What do you see yourself acquiring or having in, let's say, 3 years?
Ooh, 3 years, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So I definitely, I'd say the vision is, you know, being able to jump into real estate full time, you know, like as an investor, as an agent. And then in terms of units, like, you know, starting to raise private capital and starting to look to at like, you know, maybe like 10+ unit buildings and like just putting deals together all the
Yeah.
time and that kind of thing. And, you know, pretty much just kind of scaling up, you know, and to our point earlier of like just systematizing as much as I can, you know, until then, and just you know, keep pressing forward, you know, and
Yeah.
keep buying like bigger buildings and trading buildings and, you know, getting into partnerships with people and just kind of keep building up.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah. You're already in such a great position, right? I see what you do, how much you're helping out your customers and all the contacts you're making with other investors. It's great.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, man.
You're in the right path.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's, I mean, like I'm so thankful like for everything, man, like all the conversations that I've ever had, and like, you know, seeing that there's a whole nother part of life than like just working and trading time for money, man. And like I've been extremely lucky, you know, to have discovered this kind of thing very, very early.
Mhm.
So like it's like, at least like the way that I see it myself is like I just have an obligation where like everything that I learn, you know, to be able to just give it back to others and be like, hey, you
Yeah.
know, like there's something like more to life than your, you know, like if it works for you or whatever. But it just, there's more to life than just working and, you know,
Yeah.
giving taxes to Uncle Sam, and like there's like a whole nother world out there,
Right. Yeah.
you know. So
Oh,
like trying to just show people like, hey, you know, like you might like this, you might not, but just letting you know, like there is a lot of stuff out there that's absolutely crazy,
yeah.
and it's only as difficult as you make it.
Yeah. What was that pivotal moment for you, Kyle? How did you come to this realization so early in your life? Like what was that moment?
Yeah, so I actually, it was like it was a couple months before I turned 18, and I don't know what it was, man, but I was sitting on my computer one day, and like I had this random thought in my brain to Google what investing was,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it, man. Literally, like one Google search has changed my entire life.
Wow.
And like, from that, it led into like, I started reading into stocks, and like it was all over, man. Like the big bang just went off. I'm like literally a whole different person in a matter of 5 minutes. And like
Yeah.
this is it for like the rest of my life. And like starting to learn about stocks and how markets work, and like,
Yeah.
not trading time for money anymore, and like, why the wealthy get wealthy. And it's like all of a sudden you go from having that mentality of like, oh, like rich people are, really snobby, and like you have to invent this like big product and this big company and have a ton of money and everything. And like that's not at all how it is, man.
Yeah.
Like maybe like there's a small percentage of people out there, but
Yeah.
there are a lot more extremely wealthy people, especially like directly around us, than like, than I ever thought.
Yeah.
Even in like Tewksbury, man. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I just like, you never know who is around you,
Yeah.
and like what they're trying to do. And like, having the blend of people in our, like entrepreneurial, kind of networks, I guess, that most people want to help each other.
Yeah.
Like especially in real estate investing alone, because it is such a team-based sport, like you never know who you're going to work with. And like what we're doing is very difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but because there are a lot of us, like, we're able to work together, and like, like everybody grows together, like to that analogy of like all the like the boats on the same water, and like everybody like rise, and like, while the tide goes up and that kind of thing. And like even if like what I tell people sometimes, man, is like, even if two people are looking for, like a multifamily on the same street in the same town, like a lot of people from the outside in might be like, oh, like those guys are competitors. Like they're trying to just go like, put in higher offers on each other, and like, like they hit each other, like that kind of thing. But what I've noticed from being in this sphere for a little bit is like, that's not at all how it is. Like, hell yeah, man. Like I'll help you get that house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like do what I can, like dig through the record, and like we're all growing together.
Yeah.
And like I've never seen that anywhere else. Like especially in like the W-2 jobs that I've had. Like that's not at all how it is, man. It's like, people step on each other and trying to climb the corporate ladder, and like it's a whole different mentality, of like, I don't know, like people just trying to grow exponentially and change their lives and everything, and like do things that are actually like real, and like just like grow this like serious amounts of wealth together, and like it's a real thing. And like they're so open to helping each other. Like it's like the most
Yeah.
interesting thing in the world. But then you go to like, some W-2 jobs, and like people are literally stepping on each other over like promotions and like, a couple dollar raises and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? Like it just like the dynamic is very, very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like so many wealthy people that I know, they're the most amazing people, right?
Mhm.
They're also I would say hardest working people I've ever met, right?
Yep.
They're all hustlers. They're always thinking of how to create value, how to help others, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are super, super humble, right? You would never think that they're extremely wealthy,
Hmm.
and I admire that about them, right? They're just um like even my mentor that I mentioned to you before, right? He has great success. Like he worked, of course, his life to create that success.
Yeah.
But he's he never stopped and he's still not stopping. Every day he's the first one in the office. He works more than he gets more things done by 10 a.m. than most people get done in a week, right? Like he's so disciplined. He just continues to work. That's his drive, even though he really doesn't need to work, right? Like he just continues to work, create new business, create new ideas, create new communities and groups of people, right, that can help each other, right?
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to see that. And like you'll never see him at home watching, Dancing with the Stars, right?
Yeah.
I know, I know that Brandon Turner always says that, like, who's,
Yeah.
that's how you decide, right? We all have choices, right? We can
Mhm.
watch Dancing with the Stars, or we can work on our business and become better in what we do, like underwrite deals better, right? Or make a connection, right?
Mhm.
That could be meaningful
There's
over
always
time.
growth, man.
Yeah.
And to your point, like there was another guest on the podcast that came on a while ago, and the way he phrased something like is another thing that really stuck with me. Of like if you look at some of like the quote unquote like uber wealthy people, right? Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and those kind of people,
Yeah.
why are they still working? They get all the money in the world, but why are they still working? Because
Yeah.
it's so much bigger than that, man.
It
You
is.
know,
Absolutely.
like building like really big things and the passion and like giving value to people and leaving a legacy. Like if they wanted to, like they could call it quits today and be like,
Oh yeah.
nah, screw this, I'm done. I'm gonna go,
Right.
drink myself to death on the beach or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they get all the money that that they would ever need for generations and generations.
Right.
But why are they still going into the office? Because
Yeah.
it's so much bigger than that,
It
man.
is. It's that creative process, right? Making an impact, creating something that has never been done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's progress. Progress is what makes people happy, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't feel that, if you don't continue to create that, it's yeah, you'll be at your deathbed very soon, right? Versus living a very meaningful life, right? um yeah, I don't want to die knowing that I did not take some chances and create something amazing, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to have regrets. um Part of the reason why I even joined cannabis industry, Kyle, was like I knew it was a risk. I knew it was a new industry. There's so much unknown, right? However, I knew that, um like looking back, like if I'm 80, I didn't want to think back that what if I would have missed on this opportunity.
Yeah.
And For me, that was more meaningful than sticking to my previous job, right? And just doing what I did at that time. Um, yeah.
I,
And
I totally agree, man. Like regret is like literally the scariest thing in the world. Because like if you think about it, like if you're sitting there when you're like 80, 90 years old, like there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah,
Like, yeah, those risks might have been there and like potential opportunities like 50 freaking years ago. And like, but that's like long gone. Like
yeah,
that's it. Like you just have to accept, like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. Like what if? Like that's like the scariest thing in the
yeah,
world, man. Cause like there's
yeah.
literally nothing you can do.
Right,
Like
right.
we have to take, calculated risks and chances. And to our point about the mindset of like having a rental or a business and everything, like if you take a risk, like if you take action, you're going to learn from it.
Mhm.
Like if you make money, great, but like you're learning from it either way. And
Absolutely.
then like as long as you keep pushing, like eventually you're going to kick ass and you're going to kill it.
Right.
So like, yeah, I mean, what if you lose, a bit of money and like, things happen, but like next time you'll be able to see like, oh, I didn't do like this and this, like, let's try it again next time,
Right.
and eventually, like if you work at something long enough, like it's going to work.
Right. Yeah, it's investment in yourself, right? I've Trust me, I've spent a lot money on different things that did not work out, right?
Hmm.
But I've definitely learned a lot from those experiences. Um,
Exactly.
and in most cases made great friends and great relationships as well. And that's,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, it's
It's interesting, man. Like at this point, like I don't really see in terms of like quote unquote like winning and losing. Like I don't really see losing anymore. Like I either see like progressing and moving forward and getting paid for it and like doing great,
yeah,
or I see learning until you get to that point.
yeah,
Like yeah, you might lose, but like monetarily, like on a bank statement, yeah, you lost. But in terms of actually like mentality and like learning how to fish, like
mhm,
man, like you just got a one hell of an
right.
education for
It's
like
a
the
great
the
point.
amount of money, and I feel like that's kind of the only way to think. Like if you're only on like that upswing or like that, only way is up type of mentality, like you're either winning or you're learning. That's it.
Mhm.
Like I feel like the concept of losing doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I love that. That's
I mean,
a
unless you call it
great
quits, then you
thought.
kind of like cash out,
Yeah.
but but yeah, I mean,
Um,
I feel like that's kind of the only way you have to be, man, you know, is like have like a long-term vision, you know, absolutely like believe in yourself and the things that you're doing,
mhm.
and you're going to get there, you know. And it might take, you know, having some things happen and everything that aren't so good, but as long as you learn from it and keep moving forward, like you're unstoppable, like period, like that's it.
Right. Yeah, love it. Love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, man, I love to ask this question in particular to everyone.
Okay.
And I told you a little bit about it before. How do you define wealth?
Yeah, I love that question. That is a um so um I'm sure you're getting all kinds of answers on this. So for me, Kyle, wealth is not really about the money, right? It's about the end goal, which is um ability to do what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's in some cases it is a work, continuing to work, right? Because I enjoy working and find that joy in making progress and creating value, right? So I don't think no matter how much money I would ever have, like that will not change with me, right?
Yeah.
Even when I'm 80, I see myself as working, right? In
Hell yeah.
different pieces, in like different things than what I do now, right? But still working, creating something, making that progress, right? As we just discussed, right? Um, and but the wealth gives you that opportunity to not to focus on working where you get the most money, but focusing on what gives you the most joy, right? And that flexibility to spend time with family, right? When it's important milestones in your life to be with them, right? Whether it's, I have two daughters, and if I want to um, go see them perform somewhere, or like travel with them, right? That's what I want to have, that flexibility to do that with them, right? And for
Yeah.
me, that's wealth, right? It's giving you options, flexibility to do what you want to do, right? And of course, money comes with that as well, because it gives you those options. But that's just more of the medium to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much, man. It's so true. You know, like I definitely have one that's kind of similar. You know, definitely related to family, you know, of like being able to, you know, create enough assets and like streams of income to be able to, you know, leave my day job, and same thing with my family as well, you know, and just kind of be able to do the things that we choose to do rather than the things that we're obligated to do, and don't have a choice, you know.
Right.
And yeah, it's going to take a while to get there, but it's so much bigger than the money, man. And like
Totally.
to you need to have a why that's like not focused on the money, or like, you know, it's not going to stick, like, oh, I just want to be rich, like, and you know, whatever. Like it's not going to get you through those tough times that um you know, where things aren't looking so hot, and
Mhm.
you know, you want to like hang up the jersey, you know. But like to have that kind of mentality of like, you know, I'm doing this for my family and like, you know, generations, and like, you know, I'm done with, you know, looking to impress bosses and, you know, appease coworkers, and like I just want to create,
Mhm.
you know. And like it's something that's totally possible, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
so much,
Yeah.
man.
It's important, Kyle. That's another great lesson that I've learned is um, to bring your family, right? Whether you have your spouse or kids on that journey, right? On that vision, what you're trying to accomplish. Because there will be times when it's tough, right? And everyone needs to support each other. But more importantly, as you grow, as your identity grows, right? Um, in your mindset changes, it's so critical to bring your family to the same level, right? Because otherwise, what I've seen happen, right? um, People become um, separated, right? Because of that, right? One
Yeah.
person in the family could be growing at this level while the other person is staying flat or just barely growing, right? And that
Yeah.
gap is just widening and widening until they become not at the same level mentally, right? Mindset wise.
Yeah.
And it causes issues, right? The topics, the visions, the goals are not aligned, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that in many cases causes a divorce, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's so important to bring my family on that. Like we talk about real estate, we talk about business concepts. Even with my 7 and 3-year-old daughters, we talk about this. Like right, like as simple as when we go out to dinner, we'll talk about okay, what does this restaurant do well, right? Do
That's
how quickly do they
amazing.
turn
Oh my
tables?
goodness.
How many tables they have in the restaurant, right? What do we think the rents are, right? For or the expenses, right? Food
Wow.
costs. Like I'm having these conversations, so they start thinking about all these different concepts, right? And become much better analytical and great business people and leaders when they grow up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the
Um,
coolest thing in the
yeah.
world, man. Oh my God. I'm so jealous of that. Like, oh my God. That's amazing. To be started that young of like just very subtly like planting the seeds of like thinking like a
Yeah.
whole different way. And man, like by the time your daughters are like 5 and 10, they're gonna be like writing out contracts
Oh
and
yeah.
everything, and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Dad, put this offer in for me. Like
Yeah.
cash
No, yeah.
flow, looks pretty good. But if we do this to these 3 units, I think we'll be good.
Yeah, and they love it. I love that they love it too. They, um, we it's everything like last summer we did like a quick lemonade stand, right? Which is a basic concept, right? But we are like, okay, how do we actually improve on this concept? How do we drive traffic, right? And she was coming up with ideas, right? With putting signs, putting ads together, creating a buzz in the community, right? Um, even creating or paying some kids to hang out around the lemonade stand so it shows
What?
that
That's
there's a
amazing.
huge demand, right? These
Yeah,
are the concepts that are coming to her now, and she's 7, right? So I love
that's
that she's
insane.
she, yeah. So I'm having so much fun with my kids and my
Wow.
wife too, who's starting to help me a lot in real estate now as well. Yeah.
That's so exciting, man. That's like literally the coolest thing in the world. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Fun
goodness.
things. Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. So, man, I got one more question for you, my friend. And we
Yeah.
already kind of talked about it a little bit, but the question is, do you read? And what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone?
Mm. So I
I know
do
it's
read a
tough to
lot.
pick one.
Yeah, it is tough to pick one. I do read a lot. You should, if you could see my office now, I have hundreds of books behind me, all in either business, self-development, right, categories.
Yeah.
You know, currently I'm reading a lot on real estate investments and syndications, right? Raising capital, syndication process, right?
Mhm.
Because again, that's the piece of the investment side that I really want to be
Yeah.
super knowledgeable, super good. A couple of books that you may be able to see it here. Um, uh, Here's not really, can't really see it, but raising
Ooh.
capital and multifamily acquisitions
Mhm.
that I'm reading. Great books. But if I need to pick one that's been a really life changing, um, definitely the Rich Dad Poor Dad, which
Mhm.
I know it's such a favorite of so many people. Um, is it's just the way it's written, right? And it allows you to grasp the concepts in very simple terms.
Yeah.
It's very life changing. And again, I read it twice. First time I liked it. Second time I loved it, and actually took it to that next level, right? To change my life with it. Um, but yeah, it's I have so many great books. One that I recently read was 100 Million Offers. Um, by Alex Hormozy. Have you heard of him?
I haven't.
Um, really inspiring entrepreneur. He has had multiple businesses, and he created a value, basically a focused pricing, right? Where he's like, you can't just compete on pricing, right? You just can't win in that scenario, right?
Yeah.
You need to compete in differentiation, in value add, where people cannot even compare you to somebody else because you're creating so much value, you're giving so much value, you're so different that you can ask for any price you want and you'll get it, right? In
Ah,
essence, that's what the
that's
book
cool.
is, versus offering what everybody else does, and then consumers can say, no, you're just like everybody else, and other people are giving it for a lot less. I'll go with them, right? So
Yeah.
also changed my mind of how to think of services, solutions, to provide to investors, business owners that um, that could grow their business from that perspective, right? Versus just competing on price. Yeah,
I like that a lot, man. I'll
yeah,
definitely write those two down and get to
yeah,
those.
yeah,
Have you
yeah,
read Raising Private Capital? I think it's by Matt
yeah,
Fairclough, I think.
yeah. I have,
Absolutely
and
love
he's
that.
he's a great guy too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Matt's done really well, and that's a great book. Yeah, yeah. What's your favorite book?
Ooh. It's kind of funny, man. Like, I don't think anybody's actually asked me like what mine is. um, ooh. So I'd say like the biggest impact book was definitely, to your point of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Um, the E-Myth was another one that like
Great
introduced
book.
process for the first time to me, and
Yeah,
that's another one that permanently rewired my mindset like for the
yeah.
rest of my life. Um, I really The One Thing.
The one thing. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, The
Yeah,
One Thing. Oh man,
yeah,
I love that book so much. Like just this concept of like, you know, like the more stuff that you take on, like you're just spreading yourself like too thin, and then like you're only able to progress like, on all of them like a little bit together instead of going deep on like one thing and actually like just like nose diving in there. And
yeah,
it just like that concept is crazy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
definitely still trying to apply it
Yeah, I
a
always
bit.
think of building bridges, right? And I don't know if that was in that book or somewhere else that I
Mhm.
read it. Like if you want to get across to the other side, right, of the river, do you build 10 bridges slowly at the same time and possibly never making it to the other side, or you put the same focus and energy of 10 bridges into one bridge and get across very quickly with that focus, right?
Yeah.
So I always think of that analogy, right? Um, which comes very handy all the time.
It's so true, man. And then
Yeah,
like once you see that, like once you build that first bridge, then you can use like the resources from that other island to be able to build up the next one and the next one and the next one
yeah,
and the next one. And
yeah.
yeah, I love that so
Love it.
much, man.
Yeah,
And like once you see that type of thing and like understand it, like you can tell like yourself from like a self-aware kind of standpoint, like, oh, am I taking on too much? Or like, why do I still have my hands in this? Like I should delegate that, or like, maybe like just focus on like another area for now and like kind of leave that in the background. Or and like you can just kind of be very self-aware, like once you like really like grasp that concept, and like it's absolutely wild.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome. Yeah,
love that,
great
man.
books, great books. Yeah. Yeah. We should
Man,
start a book club, Kyle, and
we should.
create a lot of great books. Yeah.
There's a million absolutely good ones out there, man.
Oh yeah.
My list is like ridiculously long. I'm hoping to like literally like every single book that like anybody recommends to me, like I just throw it on like this huge like master list, and it's like wicked long. I'm like, I hope I like never get through this list for like the rest of my life. I'm like, I got like a million to read. Like, let's add a
Yeah.
million more. Like
Yeah.
I don't want like nothing to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point earlier of like when you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, a while ago, and then once you read it at a different point in your life, and like it hitting a lot different. That's something that I always find really interesting too, is when you read a book at one point at like, a certain part of your life, like it might not really like hit that much, and like it might not be like as applicable. But if you read that book like later on, like maybe when you're, you've progressed a bit and like have built up a little bit, like that book might like totally change your life. And like the black and white text on the paper hasn't changed, but the actual meaning and like the mindset and like where you are, might totally make that like extremely applicable and like change everything. And like some people reading like, I don't even know like what's like an example, but like, so like if you read a book on like, doing like absolutely crazy, like, building like ridiculously crazy businesses or something on like, the first time that you learn about like entrepreneurship and stuff, like it might not be as applicable on day one, because like you still have like a bit to go. But if you read that book when like, you've built up a company, like, kind of significantly, like you might see like, oh crap, there's like 10 things that I can be doing to like systematize these and drive up money and like, vetting employees and everything. And that's the thing that I love is like you might have the same book sitting on the shelf for 10 years, but like if you pick it up again, like it might like totally like hit you in the face of like, oh, there's like a million things that you can do right now to make things better.
Yeah, because your reference points change, right? As you have more experience and you have possibly gone through some of those challenges that the book now refers to, right? So you're much more relatable, and it brings different value versus reading it first time and that you may not have had that experience and issues. Yeah,
exactly, man.
Yeah.
Man, I could talk to you for hours and hours, my friend. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on here. It was an honor to have you on the show.
Well,
so
the
we're
honor
on
is all mine. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Kyle.
Thank you so much. So we're on like social media and stuff. Can you be found? I'll drop
so
everything.
I'm definitely on LinkedIn, but on Instagram, you can find me as Maciulis, so Maciulis. And for my real estate business, I have creating a company called Short Path Capital, and so you can also send me an email at ir@shortpathcapital.com.
Nice.
And we'd love to connect with your listeners
I
and see
love
how
it,
I can
man.
help them. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on here, man. That was absolutely awesome.
No, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully, you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Biggerpockets. Until next time, let's build together.